We don't have microphones, we have to do it.
Okay, we have to shout.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that. It's good to see everybody. My name is Oakley Ellis. I'm proud to be a granddaughter of Wiley Oakley. My parents are Charles and Etta Mae Oakley. Charles was the 8th child of Rebecca and Wiley.
I'm Jeff Noland. I'm proud to be the great-grandson of Wiley Oakley. I'm the grandson of Ernest and Lucinda Oakley Ogle, his oldest daughter, and son of Tom and Billy Ogle Noland. Thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it.
We're here today in memory of Wiley because tomorrow marks 70 years since his passing on November 18th, 1954.
He's buried up on the hill looking down on the town of Gatlinburg at the White Oak Flat Cemetery. And today Wiley lives on in our memories and in legend.
But we're not here today to celebrate Wiley's dying, even though tomorrow does mark 70 years since he passed away. We're here to celebrate his living, especially through his stories.
The last Christmas story will come from his daughter Lucinda.
I thank you for remembering.
And thanks to the family and friends for coming.
To the courthouse, Smoky Mountains, Historical Society. Here I am, Roman man, Wiley Oakley. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lew Bolton, and I'm standing in for Wiley Oakley. Now, you may know me as the Roman man of the mountains, or you might know me as the resting man of the mountains, but today I am the remembering man of the Smoky Mountains, because I'm remembering the past. I'm remembering things that happened here in the Smoky Mountains, things like, traveling, things like having fun at Christmas time, other things like living and dying, because memories, they are my history. Now, some people think that war is history, but I never went to war. I had some sons that went. Some people think it's a car. I never drove a car. I never had a fortune. I never did anything big. I never created something that lasted forever. The only thing that's lasting forever is maybe my life and my family. So I thank all of you for being here today as we consider these things. And as I consider and look back on my memories, I want you to look back at your memories and history in comparison to it. If you'd do that, I'd appreciate it. Well, first of all, let's talk about traveling. Now, in the olden days, the mountain people did not get out very much, very far away from home. They stayed pretty close to home. So, for me, when I was a young boy, traveling to another city, that was a big thing. And thinking of that, I wonder what your traveling was. Some of your parents traveling. What was something they did to leave home and they went somewhere new? You can be thinking about that while I tell you what was new for me. Now, I was a young boy in this story. I was on this side of 8 years old. And one day my daddy came to me, and his name was Henry Coleman Oakley. And he said, "Wiley, would you like to go with me to Knoxville to market?" Why, go to Knoxville, that big city, with my daddy? Of course I did. Now, I will admit that later on my hind end regretted it, but I did want to go. Now, my dad, let me tell you a little bit about him. Henry Coleman, his family came from North Carolina, and they moved to White Oak Flats. Of course, that's Gatlinburg today. And he done a lot of things. He was a preacher at times. He delivered mail. He was a farmer, a hunter, storyteller, all those things. And as a farmer, he would raise food for his family and also extra food to take to Knoxville to go to market. And that was the purpose of us going. So when it came time, we got that old, what they call a jolt wagon. And that's a good name for it, jolt wagon. It didn't have no springs in it, just an open bed wagon. So on those rough roads, it was pretty rough riding along to Knoxville. And it didn't have no horsepower either. It had mule power. It had 2 mules that pulled the thing. And with the things that my daddy had raised, he filled that wagon. Whatever was in season at the time. He might have apples in there, or he might have beans, corn, cabbages. Sometimes he had some eggs. He'd take them eggs with him. Sometimes honey, because he had some bee gums. So whatever he had, he'd pack it up in that wagon, and it was time to go. Well, he didn't have to ask me twice. I jumped up in that wagon, and I sat down on that hard board seat. Oh, it was really hard, believe me. And we were off to Knoxville. Well, we were going along that rough road, bumpity bump, going up that road. Oh, it was something else, I tell you, going up these dirt roads. There wasn't no paved road back then. We'd go up steep hills and down hills, and just going along. Now, at times, the mules would get so that they could not get up a hill, for example, or they get in mud and couldn't get out, so we'd have to do things. If it came to a steep hill that those mules would not pull that wagon over, here's what my daddy would have to do. He would take some of the goods out of that wagon, he'd take them to the top of the hill, he'd put them up there, he'd come back down and then drive that mule up to the top of the hill and then reload that wagon. That's what he had to do. So then on toward Knoxville we went. Well, we traveled and we had to cross creeks, we had to cross rivers. There wasn't no bridges back then. And it was 45 miles all the way to Knoxville at that time. And it would take sometimes 4 to 6 days to make that round trip. So it was a long drive, it was. But night come on, it was getting towards dark, and so it was time to settle down for the evening. So we found a nice place to pull the wagon off to, and we roped up the mules to a tree with enough rope so that they could get the food off of the ground, the oats and the hay and such as that, but tight enough so they couldn't get loose at night. And then we had a nice fire going. And in that fire we cooked our supper, cooked our meat and our taters and whatever we had that night. And oh, it tasted so good being in the outer doors like that. Then when all of that was done, it was time for bed. And so we rolled up in our blankets, maybe had a little padding of leaves under us, and we were able to go to sleep under the beautiful starry sky above us. And I have to tell you that was my favorite part of the whole journey. Sure was. Next morning, of course, we got another fire going and cooked our breakfast, cooked the eggs and the flapjacks and things, and fed the mules again, and finally hitched them up to the wagon, and then we was ready to go. So off we went toward Knoxville again. On and on we went. Well, it was a long trip, but we finally got to Knoxville. And Daddy done his business, you know. He sold what he could, and what he could he brought back home with him. So I was glad when we finally turned around and headed back towards the Smoky Mountains. Well, we got back there, and to make a long story short, I didn't ever want to go to Knoxville again. Not in that old jolt wagon. You see, the rocky road, it had just made me so sore and weary, all that traveling. So when we got home, I jumped out of that wagon and I headed toward the mountain and the wild woods, which I love, because I love hunting and I love fishing best of all. So that's a little about traveling and the way I saw things back then. I don't know how you saw yours. When my grandmother died, the person said, she has gone to the silent wood.